This is Ed, and welcome back to Global Business News TV. In the background here is a picture that I took about a month ago, and this is San Diego Harbor, the bay. The downtown is to the left of that scene, and the ocean is to the right. And I took the picture from what's called Harbor Island, which is um, juts out into the harbor. It's a recreation area, restaurants, walking paths, hotels. And behind that is the airport, San Diego Airport. And that is an aircraft carrier. There's one of San Diego has a huge military presence. U.S. Navy Pacific Fleet is headquartered here. And that's one of the giant aircraft carriers right behind us. And you could see the sailboats right in front of it. And, so there's a coexistence. And I chose that picture for this because it's charismatic about San Diego on a beautiful day, of which there's many, thankfully. San Diego sits in the south, of course, on the Mexican border. And um, north of us, 150 miles north of downtown San Diego, is downtown LA. And so between here and there, there's wall-to-wall people, except for some areas of mountains and preserves. And there's a lot of people involved and a lot of industry and a lot of history as well. Southern California style history. Which is
Mm.
different than Northeast North America uh, history, very different. So the way the mountain ranges to my north, and I'll be brief here, are situated, oftentimes the storms that come down from the Gulf of Alaska and down, which is in the Pacific, down across Canada and Seattle, Northern California, San Francisco, they run into these 8 to 10,000 foot mountains, which are around LA, okay, and all throughout California, actually, north, south, east, west. And so the storms oftentimes don't hit San Diego, but they wind
Mm.
up in the high mountains, which is okay because then that captures the snow and the rain, and it all flows into the Colorado River basin, which is where most of our water comes from, unless they start to desalinate the Pacific Ocean, which may happen someday, but right now it's not. So that's enough of this area, but it's charismatic. So how
Right.
can you and me and the audience out there um, who may not be comfortable in front of a camera, how can people who are not naturally thinking of themselves as being charismatic polish their verbal skills when nonverbal also works? And so the idea of telling stories is the pathway because stories are comfortable rather than strong sentences, showing off. Uh, doesn't work. But storytelling does because everybody has a story. It doesn't matter what you look like or who you are or where you're from. We all have a story. And by telling a story in an easy way, you communicate with people. So the idea is not to talk too much uh,
Yeah.
or make it confusing. We keep it simple, but uh, seek feedback. I'm reading some notes here while I'm talking. Seeking feedback is a way to project self assurance, self confidence. So if I say to you, gee, what do you think about this picture? Do you think it's a waste of time? I could change it and put skyline, or I could put my logo there, but that's pretty boring after a while. So having an image like this, that's the way I'll get out of the way, is great because it captures it. If you look at it long enough, you almost see the wind pushing the bows. But that's an imagination that I'm portraying. May not happen. But the same thing with words or stories, the spoken way of communicating into the camera, you're giving people something to think about. So it's a challenge. And for people who are not ordinarily at peace with being in the limelight, it could be really difficult. So the idea now is to think about how to master questions. Again, I'm reading my notes here. By being on camera or being in an interview situation, and one of the easiest ways of communicating something which feeds into this charisma idea. So what is charisma? It's a magnet. You
Mm,
know, if you
good word.
portray yourself as knowledgeable, uh, people will tune in and try to learn something. If they can understand what your words are, the stories connected with the words, create images, which is sometimes easier. And a way to deflect away from that, a way to deflect away from that problem of being in the limelight when you're not particularly comfortable. And a lot of people are not comfortable in the limelight, is to ask questions and wait for answers to come and then have a conversation. And that builds a dialogue. And if it works, it builds trust. So what happens when somebody is nasty or being a wise guy and interrupts your flow? That is a problem for a lot of people. And because you can't get PO'd, you can't get pissed off at somebody, because that's going to reflect on you, not on them. And so you don't want to do that. Just think of the spectacle in the White House recently. That completely was a stupid thing to do. But it's almost, some commentators are actually, and I'm not going to dwell on this, but they they're saying now that it was staged on purpose. It was a setup, yeah, but they already figured out that they've got to shake things up and grab attention. And even if it doesn't look good, they can always explain it away next week and then have
Mm.
another meeting and everybody's nice. And then lo and behold, maybe they'll go to the negotiating table and make some kind of a deal to end that war. Um, Interesting. So the whole charisma of the event and how to transition from fighting each other and war and destruction into figuring out what's next rather than stay in what was. So inviting questions, I'm going to read this. This is from Geniuses Online, and not from me. So questions invite other questions. At the end or pause strategically during longer talks. Ask for questions in the chat during the virtual thing, or pose a question and then answer it yourself with
Mm.
examples. That's the easiest way to control events and keep things on a track that you are setting up, not somebody else. Ask a question and then give an answer. Okay. And then maybe take a question from someone else on the panel because that'll take up some time and deflect from yourself. Getting them involved is always okay. You can always reclaim the lead by asking another question. And then that builds an image in the eye of the audience of you as a thoughtful person, as a leader, and to control or to shepherd the conversation in a certain way. All of that leads to the image of preparation, that you're prepared, and uh, that builds confidence from the audience to you, and you feel it right away. And of course, the opposite is true. If they're, looking disrespectful and not paying any attention, then what do you do? Well, you can take your shoe off and bang the table, but that might not work.
No.
So, what do you think of this idea of uh, mastering the power of your presence? Now, your presence, I pose a question, now I'm going to answer, and then I'm going to
Okay.
stop talking. The other day when we had that conversation, which was really good and very, very educational for me and the other people who commented to me, they learned a lot about you and your depth of background. And some of those people who were on the show didn't have the knowledge that you had about the mobility industry and how it all works and how important it is. And
Right.
not a lot of people who are not in the industry get it. They just don't understand it unless they have to be relocated. And then it's like a wall coming down on their head and totally disruptive. So by asking engaging questions, this says, it shows curiosity and empathy, or it could, um, and it breeds confidence. This person who sent me this note says the idea is to practice before you get on camera and record yourself uh, to understand how you sound. And they suggest here, I'm reading this, use a strong, steady voice, maintain eye contact with the camera. If you're sitting, sit up, don't lean forward like I just was, and don't slouch. But if you're standing, then, you have probably a lectern to lean on. Um, there may be an image behind that takes the eyeball off of you, and that
Yes.
is a trick, that if you use it right. Now, I could have put up red flowers or yellow flowers, um, but I didn't think that would be cool today. So they say tell stories that resonate with the audience, whoever that audience is, paint vivid pictures with words or show an image to convey. And that will draw people into whatever you want to say. So this is not mystery. This is so obvious, but thinking about it in the context of what am I doing and how am I appearing, that's where it works. So tell me what your thoughts are about the show that we did last week and how that can relate to what this is all about.
I think the show last week was, I think, getting out there and putting yourself out there, being authentic, right? I think that's one of the things they say on communication is, especially when you're not comfortable doing this. For me, I was open about, this is new to me, getting out there on LinkedIn, doing podcasts and speaking, openly about who I am and about your skills. And, most of us, we do the task and we do our job and we're good one-on-one with people, but getting out there and sort of, for everybody to see, I think conjures up a lot of insecurities for people and a lot of hesitation. But I think it builds, so being last week with you and with Ken, it's building confidence. The more that I step out of my comfort zone, the more I start to talk, the more I feel more confident about me. And I think, you're right about the storytelling. I've had, some good bosses where they always used to, challenge me, what's the story? And I thought, what are you talking about? And they are already there. They knew that to engage their customers, to engage people, to interact with you, you had to have a good story. And I can say, with over the last few months of me posting on LinkedIn and stuff, certainly the posts where I've been more authentically me and been telling a story have had way more engagement from the audience and interaction than just, the data that you present where you're just giving some sort of facts and stuff. I think it's interesting to people, but it's not really saying who you are. And so I think, the questions for or that I ask myself is, who do I want to be? And really at the beginning, I don't think you're necessarily sure. I think it takes a while of interacting and getting out there and starting to speak before you feel you align yourself as to who you are and how you want to present yourself. And I think that becomes first before you start, what are you selling? And and how do you want to sell that, and who are you selling it to? I think you have to get, Edwin, and I think you said that practicing is really key before you step past that into what are you selling, is getting comfortable with you, building that charisma with your audience so that they start to get comfortable with you and they have a trust for you. And once you have that, then I think you can focus on, now, what are you selling? Are you selling your skills? Are you selling a product? And where are you going with that?
So here's an assignment for the next time. Think about, and you could get back to me privately and email, and just tell me to stuff it. I don't want to do that. But the idea is this playing on what we talked about last time, stakeholders.
Hmm.
I'd like to have your help inviting, or just give me an intro, and tell them your intro. You're introducing them to me for me to invite them to come on. So you don't have to
Sure.
get involved, but you're the conduit and you'll be involved. We need to have a conversation, not just for us, but for the audience out there. This is TV. Okay, so we're making a program about where the mobility industry is actually going. It's about time, right? That
Yeah.
their talent acquisition, assessment, onboarding, assessment, and then L&D and right person, right place, right time. Uh,
Hmm.
and where do you put through L&D, where do you put that person? And then the person goes on an assignment or does something on a project, right? And then there's a line manager that's overseeing that. And then the mobility person will get that person prepped to do a good job with comfort and with under company rules. And
Yes.
that's the
Yes.
role of mobility, but it's always been not done that way. And so now everybody's talking about doing it that way. You have done it that way. And so now if we can get some of those stakeholders to come on the show with us and have that conversation. They could be retired people or they could be into it day in, day out right now. Doesn't matter.
Okay.
It's the voice of experience that we want to have now, and build this topic idea into a bigger conversation. And the net of that, assuming that it works well, first of all, your comfort zone grows. And second of all, the audience gets to know you. And in that audience are people who could possibly hire you or retain your services. And of course, that'd be wonderful. And what I have is more of an audience as the publisher producer here. What I'm
Mhm.
trying to do is build audience. And the way to do that is through a topic that everybody
Interesting.
knows something about, but maybe wants to do more with it. And just pulling it all together is difficult because they're busy doing other things. So that's my role because I'm
Okay.
focusing on that activity, bringing people together into what I call the global meeting room right here. So for the next time, whenever it is, I love to have people from who work and live in Canada, and
Sure.
as well as people in the U.S. and maybe we'll find somebody from Latin America, who knows, so Europe. But it's something to work on, and if it works, like I think it will, then we'll do it again in April, you know,
Okay.
and maybe again
Good.
in May, maybe with different people coming in and out, and so the network grows. It's like dropping a rock in the pond, and
Yes.
those circles keep going out.
Yeah. The
That's
ripples.
how to think about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I have found over the last month or so, lots of people that I've talked about doing podcasts. They all say, "Oh, I've been thinking about that, or I'd be interested in doing that," but they just, you know, I think the same thing. They don't have the time, or they're not confident, or they just
Mm,
don't see themselves. They see other people, and uh, what the flip side of that is, a lot of the people that I've seen doing podcasts, at first I thought, oh well, those are more important people, and those are people that people want to listen to, and I would never be that person. And the more that I meet people that are talking, and everybody's just the same. Everybody's just trying to have a voice. Everybody's just having to have a conversation, and these are lots of just experts in their field that just want to have a voice and want to share their information. So i think I think that's the first thing that people need to sort of get in their heads, is that these are conversations, and everybody is interested in hearing, if it's a topic that interests you. So
Thank you for being my guest on this program.
you're
Uh,
welcome.
I'll send
Thank you
you
for
a
having me.
copy of this, and between us, we could send it out to people who fall into the categories we were just talking about, and then we'll have a conversation. Email is fine, or LinkedIn messaging, and then I'll take it from there and organize the next event.
Sounds great. Thanks, Edwin, for having me again. Okay,
You
look
bet. No,
forward to
I
speaking with
loved it.
you.
It's this just screams authenticity, and that is the key,
That's the key.
rather than Hollywood stuff, the authenticity.
I think that's the key word for, I think that's the key word for the world.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Edwin. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you. Thank you.